The Dark Knight is excellent. Sounds like a cold take, right? Well, according to Twitter.com, The Dark Knight is fascist propaganda that supports the Patriot Act. No, I'm not kidding. People are actually trying to argue this on that hell site. Y'all got good moral dilemmas? Nah, we gotta praise the Patriot Act. The Dark Knight. And I kid you not, their only proof of this is the fact that Batman uses a spy system as a last resort at the end, which Lucius questions him on, and which both of them destroy by the end. The film posits that Batman, George Bush, is a tragic hero who actually saved Gotham, the USA, through his usage of surveillance tech, the Patriot Act, to catch the Joker, the Middle Eastern terrorists. It's a pretty lame and uninteresting moral dilemma for obvious reasons.
I think there are a lot of disingenuous people online that just want to hate on the film. They don't want to make it better, right? They want to hate on it.
First of all, what kind of fear toxin-induced nightmare did you just walk out of? Batman is George Bush because he used surveillance tech to catch a mass murderer when he had little choices left to stop him? A surveillance system that he destroyed after using it? The Patriot Act is meant to change the standard for law enforcement. Batman doesn't want the surveillance system to be the standard, not even for himself. That's why he destroys it at the end if you watch the film. Second of all, Norman doesn't implement his political beliefs into his work because he doesn't believe that's a practical approach. Grant Paulson claps back on the original tweet with common sense, questioning if this person has a problem with complex characters making morally questionable decisions. If we're going with the real-world allegories here, Batman is representative of the American surveillance state, and he succeeds at defeating the Joker, even it told us to be morally corrupt. We never see the negative consequences of the surveillance past lip service. Batman didn't succeed at defeating the Joker. The film literally ends with Gordon saying the Joker won. Because his big plan wasn't banking on the fairies, Joker literally says this in the film. Did you watch it?
You didn't think I'd risk losing the battle for Gotham's soul in a fistfight with you. Oh, you need an ace in the hole. Mine's Harvey.
One of the main praises of The Dark Knight is that it doesn't end with the hero succeeding. The Joker still took the best of them and tore him down. The only way they could cover that up was by covering for Harvey's crimes, forcing Batman to take the fall for them. Batman was meant to be a symbol of hope, and the Joker succeeded in tearing that down. And as for the negative consequences for the surveillance, we don't need to see that because the entire point of destroying it is so that they don't come to pass. Lucius already outlines the privacy implications this has and how this grants too much power over an entire city. It's made very clear why this shouldn't be the norm. Grant Paulson, once again, claps back with common sense. The earlier tweet gets linked, and Grant Paulson, once again, claps back with common sense. If only there was a scene that spelled out to you that mass surveillance is a dangerous breach of privacy.
Unethical, dangerous. With half the city feeding you sonar, you can image all of Gotham. This is wrong.
Oh wait, they literally spell it out for you that this is a bad thing, and you're still complaining about it. This literally gets brought up and we have this well thought out response. Not a big fan of the movie, but I disagree with this. Alfred, this person means to actually say Fox, practically turns to the camera and says, "This is wrong." When Batman shows him the surveillance system, it's supposed to represent Batman's moral code, eroding as he becomes increasingly obsessed with catching the Joker. But the surveillance works. One of the biggest forms of Western propaganda is the idea that law enforcement and the military commit necessary evils to ensure justice. Batman's usage of surveillance literally ends with him catching the Joker. The film justifies it. Just because the surveillance worked in tracking down the Joker doesn't mean Nolan is justifying it. Have you ever heard of the phrase, "the ends don't justify the means"? Apparently, despite the film spelling out that this is too much power for one person, the film is justifying the means for which the ending was achieved. This is a farcical interpretation. I think everyone is kind of missing what's wrong with the Dark Knight's Patriot Act metaphor. It's not that it thinks the Patriot Act was good, it's that it frames it as an understandable response on America's part, that our enemies were maniacal monsters that forced us down to their level. 1,000 people liked this garbage. Nolan doesn't say anything about whether America was justified in their actions because that's not what the scene is about. And like I said earlier, this is not what Nolan does in his works. The allegory to the Patriot Act extends as far as the ethics of mass surveillance, and how that can be a moral dilemma for Batman, the world's greatest detective. I also want to add that making a motivation understandable does not equal making a motivation justifiable. justifiable. The Daredevil show makes it understandable why Wilson Fisk would become the Kingpin, but it doesn't justify his actions. You're shutting down any sense of nuance by grouping those two together, and you start falling into the territory of labeling a depiction as an endorsement. It's a moral failing on Batman's part that he uses the tech, yes, and we're told over and over that it's immoral, but he uses it nonetheless. But Nolan isn't vilifying America's war on terror, he's simply recontextualizing it. That in our modern world, there are no clean heroes and morals. There is a dark night, that America will come whatever it needs to be to stop foreign threats, even if it means a compromise of its shining image. So, as pointed out by the great Necromorph himself, it does vilify it. And as Grant pointed out earlier, Batman doesn't represent America. Again, what kind of fear toxin-induced nightmare did you just wake up from? Batman represents one man who tries to live by a set of rules, but is challenged by the Joker. The Joker is the one that pushes Batman over the edge. That's the entire point of their dynamic. It's almost like Batman can't make a morally questionable decision without performative activists going online and accusing filmmakers of endorsing bad politics. This displays a complete disregard for media literacy in favor of political rambling. I wonder what that reminds me of. I don't think I've ever seen a take on The Dark Knight this bad. Well, maybe there's that one time.
I also don't think I believe that, if I was on one of these ships, I would have taken the bullet. I'd have been like, I'll blow the other one up. There's no way I'm letting both ships blow up. That's fucking retarded. I'm not letting that happen.
I think a lot of this speaks for itself. I'd like to think most of us have the common sense to understand why this is utter nonsense, but some people don't, and it's fun to laugh at, especially with how smug and confident people can be when spewing the worst takes imaginable.
He's such an idiot!
But that's all I've got for now. Been a hot minute since I've responded to people grifting politics, and for good reason. Let me know what you want me to respond to, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. See you later.